Welcome back here, folks, ladies and gentlemen. The Smite Pro League in full force. We are concluding our 5th week, leaving just one. We're here in the penultimate one. Myself and Graham, we've been here since Season 1, and we'll be here, well, who knows how long.
Season 9.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm done after Season 9.
Yeah?
Yeah. Any show that goes past 9 seasons, it's over.
6 seasons in a movie. Hopefully we get at least one of those.
Yeah. I'm so excited about the movie.
Well, right now we're going to watch The Movers here. Standings in North America after 2 out of 3 of our matches. Space Station on top. And if you watch the last game, that's how it's got to be, baby. Baskin been going nuts, but seeing Trifecta in that second spot, well, it's a little bit of a surprise.
Well, it's more of a surprise after that second Splyce. It was a back-and-forth encounter, and Splyce could have crept up to 2 and 6, but not to be. It even filled our production earlier on.
Well, LG and Splyce are going to be our next matchup. We'll see who leapfrogs over where. I think Neil Ma put it best, Trifecta, when they played earlier, and he said, listen, Splyce's record does not represent how good of a team they are.
It doesn't. And I think Trifecta versus Splyce is a great matchup because both of those teams bring interesting things. Well, so does LG, I should say. And with LG, I mean, the one thing about them is they also bring their own interest, but they've got a lot of growing to do this season.
I mean, we watched them go head-to-head against their last opposition and, you know, Basque Station Gaming.
Doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count strictly because Space Station has been out of control these days. Luminosity trying to hang on and find some control for themselves. The jury was out, and now they're in. LG are the real deal. They started off in the beginning kind of hot, and then they cooled down. But guess what? We watched them against the top of the crop, and I think LG has proven themselves. Keegsmate, the rookie, this dude is going to be a household name. If you're not familiar with him, get familiar with him. LG, these guys are going to surprise people. I recorded that before today.
I was about to say, proving themselves, Tom? Really? Proving themselves against the top, the cream of the crop, the Space Station cream of the crop?
They did in the past. Don't forget, double round robin. But here, the second time around, not the case.
Hey, listen, I said it on the desk earlier with Finch, though, but LG this season, they surprised a lot of people because they are good players. They are really good individual players. But the one thing they didn't have is chemistry or experience in the Pro League as a team. That's why a lot of people put them down at the start of the season. Sure. Rightly so, when you think about it. You know, you've got an unregistered rookie from the mid lane that's not played on the PC in the competitive scene before. You've got NotGeno coming out of nowhere too. You're kind of up in the air. You've also got not Clout. I was going to say not Clout.
Vedium.
But not Vedium. Clout in that role too, who's had up and down seasons before. So seeing this roster come together, like they needed to work on synergy and teamwork, and that is what they have really done well this split.
I really like what LG has, just the raw materials. You've got 3 veterans, one of which is a great leader. I think Weekend is a fantastic leader. Kiki is a great teammate. He's always been talked about as being a fantastic guy to have on your squad, being sort of the guy that's going to uplift everybody. And Clout's the guy that leads by example. He's just going to do his job, and he's going to crush it, and he's not going to give any good tips to the youngsters, but he's just going to do his thing. And Keegsmate and the other rookie, Geno, able to sort of just learn from these veterans. It's a nice mix of accomplished veterans and newer players. Keep in mind, Keegsmate, a console world champion, so he does know what it's like to be part of a winning atmosphere. You combine winning atmosphere experience with long-term SPL experience with new players, but with the right instincts, and then just raw talent like Clout. And I think LG have a lot of what it takes to become one of these top teams.
And you've been harping on this a lot more as well, more so than me, but like the 2 players that they brought up too, it's about how hungry they are as well to be in the scene and make an impact. And they're both doing that from the positions they're in.
Yeah, exactly. And LG has been really just a big deal, piloted, I think, in part by Weekend. That veteran leadership coming out from the blue and white here from Kurt Schrey. I mean, he's bringing out the new characters, but I mean, I was lucky enough to speak with him in a post-game interview, and he was like, look, man, we just are all on the same page. This team all wants to win. They're all dedicated to it, and it's the atmosphere. He didn't say it exactly, but what I was able to draw from his words were, everybody just happy, comfortable, and ready to play Smite.
And just going back on Weekend on his own, though, on his individual play, I think this is a very good season for Weekend because it's a jungle meta.
Sure.
When Weekend first came onto the scene, he exploded onto it with the likes of the Arachne, the Mercury, which were gods that were very much in the forefront at that time, the assassins being heavy and dangerous. this is the same sort of meta as that. And we can, since then, has had a downtrend because the meta kind of shifted away. It didn't work out as well. Now it's coming back this direction, though, towards jungler focus and mid, obviously. But jungler focus means that this is a sort of meta you expect Weekend to rise in.
Exactly, and watching him and his team rise has been a lot of fun. They'll be going head-to-head against Splyce here today. The Black and Yellow are interesting. Obviously, earlier today, losing to Trifecta in 3 games. But these 5 dudes right here have been really, really surprising. And what's not surprising, I think, is how well they're doing. I think it's surprising to see all these guys in the same spot. TheBest and Divios, it's been a while since they've come out and played, but watching these guys succeed, no surprise there.
You know what I love about this cup? When you look at that roster and you look at them, I don't see one leader. I see a collective unit that will all do a vote system, democracy almost, in terms of how picks and bans are going to go, what the style of the game's going to be, what the shot call is going to be, do we do fire or something. If anyone, the core Aror, Divios, Best, who've been on Eager together previously and had good success all the way up to, I believe, a semi-final at the World Championships, says a lot about this team. Like, they have that core there with Cyno, who has done a lot of learning last year and now has gone out on his own this year with this roster. And then last but not least, you've still got one of them, member, to talk about.
Sure. And watching everybody else come out here and seeing how these teams work. I mean, Cyno, I think, has been the standout player for me when he's able to. Guy's still streaky, but when Cyno comes out and plays hard, and let me take that back. Cyno always comes out and plays hard. No disrespect to him whatsoever. But when he's able to execute is really when this team looks strong. Every time they come out, I think we see a good performance from Best and Divios. Almost every time, we'll say. I think you can expect a good performance from those players. But Cyno has been a little bit streaky, and that's problematic for me.
And I think the Cyno being streaky has been some of the gods that he's had to play in terms of what his team wants him to do. But also, it's building synergy between Best, him, and Aror, which is not an easy transition you expect to happen overnight. Even the likes of LG, who we're going to see play against him here today, they still have learning synergies to do in terms of that trio, which is still a thing.
Game 1 coming at you right here. Picks and bans at the very least. And on the left side will be Splyce. They will have the first option here for first pick. And of course, first bans. I don't expect to see anything too out of the ordinary.
Naja Arachne.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well,
ban Arachne from Weekend, ban Naja from Cyno.
Well, if Splyce don't want to play Achilles, they have to ban him out as well. Weekend has taken the new assassin, or the new warrior, excuse me, every chance he's gotten. So it's going to be the Athena ban.
Still the best looking jungler on it so far this season that I've seen is Weekend on the Achilles. Best support, I said it earlier, Rafa. Best solo, Benji. That's where we've seen Achilles in the 3 roles.
Easy.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Terra and Giannis banned out by Luminosity. Splyce and now have the option, the ball in their court. I'd like to see the Achilles selection here to take it away from Weekend, but it's the Nemesis, which actually does kind of nicely against the Achilles.
Also, Cyno sure can go to it. We did see Splyce earlier today mix things up as well in terms of what they could pick for themselves. So seeing Cyno on that, it's not going to be upsetting for me. If they do go for the Achilles, which I'm not surprised about, Weekend will lock that in again. But I think Splyce are one of these teams that will quite happily play around a god and even pick against it in unconventional methods that you're like, wait, what's this comp about? But it may still work out to sort out Artio though.
They're really good at picking at finding the off-label approaches for the characters, where you pick this guy to counteract healing, but P.S. he's got a little side thing, and that's why we see Splyce juice.
Well, talking about countering, Artio being locked in by LG immediately takes away that tier opportunity from Divios that he likes to run to in the solo lane. And I think that's why we see the Cerberus picks up so quickly here, too.
You know, you say that, but we've watched Divios play into Artios with the tier.
We have.
And he succeeded.
We have, but I think it was a different scenario. You've actually seen,
I agree.
With Splyce's games today as well, they actually held their solo lane a little bit later if they were going to go for the tier, just to check it out. They didn't just go instant tier like they did the week before in week 4. The Agni, though, into an Artio and an Achilles, a little bit worried about his safety is my biggest concern. Obviously, the dash is his only form of escape. Cripple shuts that down.
I think his goal there is to make sure that he's never where the Artio is. Artio is going to battle to be in the front line, and Agni's going to try and stay on the back line. And while the dash might be his only form of escape as far as movement is concerned, shutting people down with the stun and being able to walk out of it is also an option for Agni. Hopefully for Splyce and their fans, though, TheBest is going to be able to stay at a distance. I think that's the goal for him, which is why I like LG's choice of Hachiman. Rare is the occasion that the Hunter is going to be able to find the opposition and wiggle in those basics, but Hachi will be able to reach the long-range hits.
I am so surprised by that Kamazot's ban by Luminosity there. I don't think we've seen much of Divios playing Camazotz whatsoever this season. I think it's a wasted ban. That I just don't see them. We're going to be looking to draft that at all.
I think that they are. I think that LG is not sold on where these characters are going.
Sure, but I still don't think Camazotz in the jungle with a Nemesis works the same way as what we saw earlier today with the Ratatoska Nemesis in the solo lane.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna straight up disagree. I think Nemesis works fine in her own right in that solo lane, independent of the jungle choice.
It's more for sell potential. That's what I'm looking at. Because if you put the Nemesis in the solo lane, you can look for a lot more ganks there. We were looking at that earlier today against the Cerberus with the Rat coming in with the ganks. And then with a Camazotz, it's a bit trickier to do that with a Kama. That's in my opinion.
Sure. The reason that I liked that was open was because you have control from Agni. So you're losing control by putting the Nemesis in the solo lane.
That's fair.
So you also lose control by putting Camazotz. So you gain it in the mid lane. Banned out, of course. We're discussing yesterday's oatmeal. But Ram and Fafnir, the duo lane for Splyce here. And that's going to be some chunky stuff.
Yeah, we'll see exactly what happens with Aror this game again. Will he continue to go for that zone of binding? Obviously, we saw it in that last set.
This is due.
He went on the Fafnir and the Ganesha. He's playing Fafnir again here. Pretty sure we're going to see it go back to it once more time.
All 3 games we've seen boots into Stone of Binding for Splyce.
But I'm also not sure whether he's playing around the mid laner a little bit more too and what Best is playing. Obviously, it's been Agni 2 of those 3 games, but a lot of it was about burst composition to follow that up with the extra damage and top.
Poseidon selected here. Interesting to see the Fafnir chosen after the fact. Poseidon can really punish Fafnir very well. Even Ram. But, chosen here. Going to shut down the Agni.
One of Keegs' go-to safe picks. That's what it is. It's good to pick that for Keegs in the mid lane. We've seen a couple of games already. He's had some good performances on it.
Even more reason why Splyce should respect it.
That's fair.
Interesting stuff here. Black and yellow. Blue and white. Who takes game 1?
Feeling black and yellow on the set I've seen today. Obviously, we saw LG take on Space Station. We saw Splyce take on Trifecta. They did both lose, but I do feel Splyce looked better.
Well, Hinduman's on the side of Wiz Khalifa. We're going to see which one wins. I give the cast to Finch and Aggro.
Wiz Khalifa?
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Hinduman. Sounds like Hindu has never heard of Wiz Khalifa. Not hard to believe at all.
What is that?
It's going to be
Where
Finch
has
and Ryan
he
here.
been? Has he been under a rock? The rock
been
that's in the
England
ocean by the
doing
duo lane,
English
by the way?
things? I don't know.
Come on, man.
But Finch and Aggro here.
Pittsburgher, by the way. I'm going to start doing
Splyce.
a thing where I try and match Tom's New Yorkers. Like, he gets a little bit of an advantage because New York's a bigger city than Pittsburgh, but I'm trying to keep up, man.
You mean in the number of references you make? Why would the size of the city matter?
Well, yeah,
Just talk
because
about it all the time.
he has more opportunities, right? There are just more people living in New York.
Sure.
There's more famous people from New York, but I feel like I can keep up like a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio. I'm going to go for it.
Well, who do you think is going to win, Mixer Chat? That's what I would like to know, so I can stop hearing about Pittsburgh.
Scale it on from Pittsburgh.
That you vote in Mixer Chat. There'll be a poll in there. I promise there will be, and you can vote on who you think will win.
Yeah, you should. It's either going to be Luminosity or Splyce, and both teams have taken some tough losses today.
They have, yeah.
And kind of on opposite end of the spectrum, right? Luminosity get blown out of the water by Space Station, never even had a chance, it felt like. On the other hand, Splyce had a really good chance to win. They're set up against Trifecta to open up the day. Splyce continues to look like they're a tough team until you look at the standings and realize that they've only found 1 win so far.
Well, that's why we added that last column over there on the right, Aggro, that plus
Just
minus.
for Splyce?
It does show how going to that third game, or it tracks going to that third game, being able to get the 2-1 rather than just getting 2-0'd. So it does benefit Splyce. No, not added just for Splyce, no. I don't think that we checked in with them. But it does show that Splyce are not maybe in as tough a situation as, say, SK or some of the other teams at EU who are, we see it like minus 13. So it's showing that there is some difference.
I'll be completely honest with you. I haven't checked in on every single Splyce result, but I've got a feeling that they've split, or gone to game 3, I should say, in almost every single set so far this year. I don't think they've been 2-0'd more than once or maybe twice.
Yeah.
But I really think it's only been once, if at all, for Splyce. So that should really give Splyce fans some hope that, it obviously comes down to skill. But there is just a luck component involved in any competitive setting, and if Splyce just gets a couple more things going their way, they probably are in the middle or the top half of the standings this year. It just was that close.
Chat's recognizing just how close it is, Ryan. Luminosity at 57%, Splyce at 43%, really neck and neck. Still giving the edge, though, to Weekend and crew. I almost want to say the keegsmate and crew at this point with how well Keegs has been playing. I feel like he's come alive here in the split.
He really has, but man, you could tell that he's still got a ways to go with the way that Baskin played last game.
Yes.
You can see that the ceiling is still a ways away for Keegs.
Does
and the rest
anyone
of the
have a
league.
loftier ceiling though than
No.
you would if you're in the mid lane?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're in a really good spot to make big plays from the mid lane, and Best did it earlier on today, and I love that he goes back to this Agni pick that he was playing earlier. I feel like Agni was pretty underrepresented for his power level coming into the beginning of the Pro League here in Season 5, but now starting to see some more priority pickups, and I think it's well warranted, man. His biggest weakness of the early game has not been completely eradicated, but certainly smoothed over his power curve with the addition of Mage's Blessing, which interacts with his passive nicely, so his Flame Wave will actually get 2 ticks of that Mage's Blessing additional power, means that he clears the wave so much better early on.
Going to help Agni in the mid lane, but I got my eyes here on this dual lane. Take a look at Geno already electing for the upgraded sprint rather. That's something I've really been enjoying, is seeing where these teams like to go with these very first builds. What do they want to prioritize? Because it kind of reflects what they want to do in these first few waves, the first few minutes of the game.
I agree with you. The upgraded sprint early, I think feels really, really good to play with, and you can use it to chase down early kill potential in that lane. Plus, almost every time you use sprint when in an offensive perspective, you'll find yourself saying, man, I wish I would have spent the extra 500 Gs to upgrade this by this point. And whether it's going to be level 1 or 2 in the dual lane or level 8, level 9, wherever it is, the first time you use that sprint offensively, you're probably going to want it to be upgraded. So whether or not Geno and Clout get use out of it early on or they have to wait a little bit, this investment early will at some point pay off for LG.
Aror and Cyclone kind of waited a little bit to start clearing, and that is going to very heftily seed the wave pressure over here to this LG squad, who almost certainly had it already between the Hachiman and the Ganesh, with the way that Ram kind of has to line up right to the wave.
Well, it's intentional that Splyce wants to get outpushed at least a little bit here, because they want the wave to be closer to their tower line, so that if and when Luminosity decide to play effective, it's a quicker route to safety for the dual lane. So it may look a little strange. It also denied a creep or two to Luminosity when they picked up the oracles, letting the minions kill themselves. So this is a smart play by Splyce, knowing that they're not going to have pressure for long no matter what, so may as well stay as safe as you can.
That safety works out for them. Now able to go over to their purple buff without any kind of intervention. It is going to be a grouping on the red for Luminosity. They'll grab that for themselves, grab the purple as well. So that one split a little bit more than this red buff that we're going to see for the best potentially on Splyce's side.
Something else that I think another reason for the rise of Agni just in the last week or so is, in my mind, because of the Magi's Cloaks. Magi's Cloak has become so prevalent
It really has, yeah.
in the meta. I mean, mids, hunters, junglers, certainly the supports and warriors have been picking up this item quite a bit. And it's because of its how cheap it is, 2,050 gold, 350 health, plus some prots, plus the bubble. It's just super efficient, so many players have been picking it up. And gods that really rely on that instant burst of CC, say Naja, who wants to all-in combo you very quickly. Man, Naja has a tough time against Magi's Cloaks in the late game. But gods like Agni, like Ganesh, they can pop off those bubbles fairly easily without losing a big part of their kit, or at least don't get it back quickly enough. Gods like Poseidon don't really care about the Magi's Cloaks. They'll still be able to cripple you out and slow you down. So I think that we're starting to see already a little bit of a change in the picks that these teams are going for because of just that one item.
And it's so efficient. I mean, you talked about it a little bit there, but we've seen some junglers go all in with like the Breastplate of Valor early. Not a ton, but we've seen it a couple times, and it's kind of slowed their builds down.
Hold on. That was Scream,
It was
who went for an
slowed him
early
down.
Breastplate of Valor, and that was bad.
Yeah.
All right, that is not what players should be doing. I'm
not
firm
saying you
believer
should. I'm
that
saying
that was
yeah.
the wrong call in that specific game. But Magi's Cloak is almost always right. That's
Yeah.
the thing about it, is that's why it's become so prevalent, because it's almost always a safe, solid pickup. Breastplate of Valor on Dodgy, no.
Not going to be good. You can do a much more efficient job doing that same thing with the Magi's Cloak. So that's going to be the plays. We do have a brief pause coming out here between these players. We'll get them back to the game here in just a moment. But already things looking pretty calm between these two teams in the early game. Maybe not what we're always used to seeing from Splyce. We don't like to sometimes play aggressive, but
Yeah.
this feels like a bit more of a slow pace.
I mean, look, Splyce just had two 50-plus minute
That's
slugfests
true.
against Trifecta, so they're nice and warm. They're ready to go into the late game. LG, on the other hand, is probably just happy that they don't have to worry about getting killed in the mid lane 6 times by now, like Baskin did to them in the last set. So they're probably just taking their time a little bit, slowing the pace, trying to get into that later stages, because they never got a chance to have an even mid-game or late-game team fight against Space Station. So you kind of just want to get to that point if you're Luminosity.
Yeah, probably glad there's not an Apollo that's already 3 levels up over them in the game this time. So they don't have to worry about that. They're certainly on much more even footing here. But if you're LG, this is a game that you need. We're in week 5 right now, Ryan. Week 6 is starting next week. That's the last week of the online portion here for the split. They're going to be going to the Masters right after that, or at least the top 2 teams will be. And LG, after taking that loss, I mean, it's all but impossible for them to make it. They would need to win every game they have and just pray everyone else loses it out entirely that's above them.
They would need some help, and you're right. I mean, if they would have won that game against Space Station Luminosity, they actually would have been in a pretty decent spot going into the last week, but with their loss, it really puts their backs against the wall. Not just one of those situations where you cannot afford to lose, especially against the 6th seed right now. Just as I was kind of ranting and raving about how Trifecta can't afford to lose against Splyce if they want to go to LAN. Same can be said for LG.
Best could be in trouble. Silence right into the crack and gets knocked up. Held down in place. Weaken finds the hit. First blood going to Luminosity, courtesy of Keegs and Geno. Red buff invade going to go their way as well.
Love it, because Best has Aegis, not beads, so he can't use the beads to dash away, and so Keegs actually leads with the Kraken, and that's something that a lot of Poseidon players don't really know, is that because of the way your tide meter works, it's increasing your power for all of your abilities. It's actually the most damage to lead with Kraken and then lay down the Whirlpool, not only because of the tide, but because it also means that you're stuck in the Whirlpool for longer. There's more duration of it. When you don't need to rely on the slow, like Keegs didn't there, leading with the Kraken is without a doubt the better move. Great synergy between him and Geno.
Could be trouble for Cyno. Root comes out. Ultimate 2. KikiSoCheeky gets the last hit with a little bit of help from Weaken. Yet again, a part of another kill is the jungler for Luminosity. Up 2-0 for Splyce. And a spill for Cyno.
Cyno didn't even need to use the ultimate there. He was dead no matter what. Would prefer to see him hang on to it, because in the late game when you use an ult like that, it's better to just get it out and make sure your damage gets off. But in the early game, I mean, his respawn timer was what, 10 seconds? Not even. So he's going to be back on the map very quickly, whereas ultimate will still be down for quite some time. So not only does he lose the beads and his life, but the ult on top of that. Cyno's now going to be on the back foot for a little bit.
Yeah, not going to be nearly as much pressure coming out from this Nemesis in the jungle for the next few seconds, maybe like 30, 40 seconds or so at least, before we're seeing things like ultimates come back up, and even longer for the purification beads. So Cyno going to be lower impact, and already choosing to go a bit safer with the bead selection anyway. Weaken went aggressive with this blink, so he's certainly going to have a bit of an edge getting in there and starting those fights anyway, and now Cyno going to be even weaker for a moment.
Kind of surprised that Cyno goes for beads in this situation. I feel like Aegis is the safer call because of the Poseidon Kraken. There's not a ton of hard CC on the side of Luminosity. Maybe Cyno's planning on heading to the right side a lot, where that cripple and stun combo from Artio can really shut down what he wants to do with the double dash from Nemesis. That's got to be that's the only thing that I can really think of. Obviously, Geno's silence is a problem, but you can get out of that fairly well enough as the Nemesis, as long as you have decent ward vision. You don't get caught out like Best did.
Splyce are able to defend the second red buff, or rather the red buff after the invade, when Luminosity were able to take that last time after they got the kill onto the Best there in the mid lane. Just unfortunate, they committed heavily onto it, and Best had to check it by himself. He ends up falling. They are able to regroup and take this one, trying to mitigate some of that loss.
Luminosity has a slight lead right now, so Splyce grouping up and making sure that that red buff goes down in their favor. Pretty important, especially with Best being so critical to their success so far in this spring split. Best has been the guy when Splyce is winning games. It's either Divios or Best that's really been making it happen for them, and so making sure that Best doesn't fall behind in the early game, especially after that first death, first blood was onto him, is a good idea.
And you talked about it earlier. I mean, Best is on the god that when we see Best do well, it's through this Agni. We can say for a lot of the middle mages right now, or maybe even some of the lower ones, is that this Agni pick really seems to work out for him because it provides so much. So you want Best to be in a comfortable position in this game, or at least where he's relevant, because as you said, when Splyce is doing well, Best is a huge part of it. And he certainly has the opportunity to do it on this Agni.
And that's the evolution of a team throughout the season, because in the early part of the spring split, it was just Splyce insta-locking Giannis every game and giving it to Best, and he was carrying. So now teams caught up, they got wise to it and said, all right, well, we're just going to ban Giannis against you. Best hasn't had the chance to pick Giannis in like 2 weeks at this point. So what does he do? He's just insta-locking Agni every game and forces enemy teams to adjust. Now you're making them make a decision. Do we let them have Agni? Do we let them have Giannis? And then I'm sure whenever the time comes where teams will ban one, pick the other, Best will have a third one ready to go. That's why really at a competitive level, you really only need to have 3 to 4 top tier gods in your god pool at any given time.
Already the fight, though, breaking out in the jungle. Kiki finds a kill, and Keeks follows up with the Kraken. Aror and Best both going back to the base. We just talked about how important Best is to this squad. And again, LG punish.
Geno has been perfect with these silences so far.
Yeah.
Best is probably regretting this Aegis pickup right now. And I love this combo of Ganesha plus Poseidon.
Yeah.
You don't get a chance to use your defensive relic in that situation. Love it.
Gold Fury now has been under the eye of Splyce, and this is theirs.
Yep.
We like to say free all the time, but this one was well earned by the fight they got over in the jungle and fighting 2 kills for themselves. No real way for Splyce to get into that and try and defend anyway. And Splyce, or rather LG, push their lead up now to almost 2,000, just a little bit shy of that at 1,800. Experience is right there with it.
Unfortunate back timing from CycloneSpin. He was the only one who was even close on the map to maybe being able to defend against that Gold Fury pool, but he had just gone back to base to finish off his boots and had really started his back or planned to back before that engagement even happened on the right-hand side. So you can't really hold it against him that he backs in that slot and doesn't end up getting the Gold Fury because of it, but just one of those situations that when he watches it back, he's probably going to say, well, that kind of sucks.
KikiSoCheeky elected to go for the early Soul Reaver, it's looking like, as Tier 1 tower and dual lane gets pressured. That's enough to force Dharmic Pillars out. Sprint comes too. This is a good call. Weekend was right there in the jungle. I think they did have a ward or a couple wards over there, so they certainly recognized it, and they're going to be able to make it right on out of there.
Weekend walked over that top side one by purple buff, so at least cost Splyce their sprint in exchange for Geno's ult, but Cyno, no Nem Shield will save you from an execute. Weekends is no exception. Nice kill there in the mid lane. Soul Reaver ends up being impactful, but didn't even need the Kraken there for Keeks.
Could be trouble in the dual lane as well. Already forced into the Aegis. Clout finds another kill. Aurora at least able to make it 1-for-1, finding the first kill for Splyce and putting it on the board. But LG continuing to do whatever they want. Kraken comes out. Best can't possibly take this fight. Keeks puts him down.
Where's the Aegis from Best? He wasn't silenced that time. He didn't use it. That brutal right there, man. You buy Aegis for a reason. You gotta use it in that slot. I don't have anything for you, Finch.
That one he ends up falling there. Just unfortunate for the Best. Red buff gets stripped away. Now they come back towards Oracles. And this is the LG that I like. This isn't just like getting the picks. This is converting that into pressure in the jungle as well, Ryan. The Gold Fury, the red buff was invaded a couple times here as well. You've got to make sure you can transition these early leads into pressure in the jungle.
Well, they haven't got pressure anywhere, really. Only on the right-hand side as Splyce had any semblance of pressure. Cyno actually gets the first half of his dash stunned out, and that lets Weekend continue this chase. Cyno doesn't have to worry about the ultimate. Now it comes up, and right as I say it, and Weekend picks up the execute, and that's where the Jotun's Wrath comes up very important. That's why I think Crusher's been a little bit overvalued, man. If that's Crusher, Weekend doesn't find that kill, because even with Crusher passive, it doesn't get Cyno low enough to find the kill. Only the 20% CDR. Cyno probably thought that ultimate was still on cooldown. Weekend surprised him and myself with it coming up right on cue.
That's a team-wide call, I feel like, for them to buy items whose power spikes are now. That's kind of what it feels like. The Soul Reaver instead of going for the stacking option. The Jotun so that I can have my abilities up as often as possible. LG want to fight now, and they're doing it.
And they're doing it well everywhere, and that's the problem. If you're Splyce, is that where do you go? I mean, the only lane, as I said, that has kind of pressure is the solo lane, and Cyno gets punished for going over there anyways by Weekend. But even if that's a 2-on-2 fight, it's still a Guardian, man. And Divios isn't playing the tier or the Hercules, something that can make the big plays at this stage. He's really waiting until the later game, but I don't know how much longer he can afford to wait here, Finch. Splyce already in some pretty dire straits, but got to keep in mind, they are only down about 2,000 gold. It could be a hell of a lot worse. The experience is where it really gets concerning.
Yeah, that 4,500 experience is not good for this Splyce roster. They're going to fight into that. We saw a bit of a grouping from them on the solo side of the map. At the very least, Cyno was over there along with Aurora, but they couldn't really find anything. They're just going to come back and grab their own blue buff. Not really much farm gain for them at all over that time period, while they were kind of just looking over at Kiki, who was under tower.
Best 3 levels down right now to keegsmate, so he still doesn't have access to beads yet. So don't be surprised if LG goes for the same combo that they've been hitting Best with so far. This game is just the Ganesh silence into the Kraken. Best hits 12 and is like, I gotta
Let me go back.
I gotta go. Let me get beads, please.
That's like the midnight run to the pharmacy or something. He's like, I need to go pick this up right now. Like, I don't have time to wait. So he makes that trip back, picks up the purification beads. Those are going to help him out considerably up against this combo that LG have been hitting home with so far, and at least force them to execute correctly a couple times in a row.
Now, Aror went for the same sort of option before, the Stone of Binding in that second item slot. This time around for the support player. Seems to be a real fan of this, and I think it's a great item that's probably underutilized, but is a little bit risky considering how far ahead Luminosity is. They've got the opportunity to just blow this Fafnir up, man. Now, he's really going to be relying on that Draconic Corruption to get him out of the Kraken, but as long as Keys is nice and patient, you get to Whirlpool Kraken any Fafnir upon their finishing off their transformation. I feel like Poseidon is one of the worst matchups for Fafnir, just because even if you take the Kraken out, laying a Whirlpool at that Dragon's feet, as soon as he hits the ground, you're dead before you ever get a chance to get your leap off 9 times out of 10.
And that's oftentimes the first thing you want to do after you transform is find that jump onto someone. Not going to be an option. As Cyclone takes an entirely too much damage from Weaken, even holds the ultimate so he can use it for an escape. He is out of there. CycloneSpin falls in the jungle.
Yeah, Cyclone is kind of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't in that slot. Keeg's in trouble, though. Has to use the beads and the Aegis. Divios has the ultimate, turns around, uses the Kraken on TheBest, forces out both relics, but Keeg's dead to rights this time around. Splyce make him pay.
Cyno is the one that finds that last hit. Keegs ends up falling. I like the idea, though. He turns back around, seeing if maybe he can put out enough damage onto Best to try and trade his life out.
But it gets both relics out, and then that spot, that's as good as you can hope for if you're keegsmate, but just shouldn't be in that spot in the first place. We've seen him from that from him before. He's got to be careful about his positioning at times.
Now, you were saying you weren't sure about Divios' impact when he rotated, but he's looking good right now. Geno, very low. Aror, de-transforming, but no one can really afford to put any damage into him. But Divios has come over, and he's starting to make a bit of an impact on this Cerberus pick for himself. Maybe not the same as a Warrior would if they were coming over, but certainly looking potent.
Going back to CycloneSpin's untimely demise by the red buff. A lot of people probably saying, yo, just use your ult, dude, you can get out of there. But as soon as he would have started the animation, throws the bow up in the air, Weaken's going to execute him. But Splyce might be able to just burn this down.
This is done.
Yeah,
this
Clout
Gold Fury's done.
Can't even get in there. What a swing from Splyce, and comes back to Keegs being out of position in that mid lane. Geno was right after him and being in the wrong spot. And it's those tiny little mental missteps that can cost you quite a bit at this level.
And to me, it's two-sided. Yes, it's a misstep from LG, but Splyce have to recognize it, and they have to have that confidence in the call. They don't send anyone up there to make sure that Clout doesn't come into the pit to try and take it away, so it's fortunate he doesn't at least throw his hat in the ring. But Splyce are able to take that Gold Fury down, and that very much not evened up, but cut into the gold lead. Experience still a problem. Gold, less so now.
If I'm Luminosity, I probably want to try and force something soon, but the problem is their defensive relics are really lacking right now. They're all kind of on cooldown. For Keegs in the mid lane, no beads or Aegis, no beads or blink. For Weaken, Shell, and Sprint down for Geno. Meanwhile, on the other side, it's only Best who's vulnerable. Now, if LG can catch him out without having to use their own defensive relics, then they're going to be in a good spot. But I think that LG would normally be trying to group up, force Pyromancer, force tier 1 mid, something like that. But the lack of relics is kind of putting a break on that plan.
Could be. Bit of a grouping here in the mid lane. Aror backing up as all of LG are here. We were talking about Keegs' build path earlier. Now he's elected to go for this Gem of Isolation. I'm pretty sure it says somewhere in the tooltip that the other team doesn't get to have any fun anymore, as now they have to deal with these obnoxious slows coming out from the Poseidon.
Wait, is that how other people feel about Poseidon once he gets Gem of Isolation? I'm always the Poseidon player, and I'm like, yes, I get to have so much fun.
I don't believe that your joy does not come from the fact that you know we all hate playing now.
No, it's just fun for me. Now, Hindu Man, on the other hand, Hindu Man has explicitly said before that he doesn't like playing single-player games because he doesn't have someone on the other side upset that they're losing. That's like a real, I mean, he's a savage guy. That's kind of how people know him.
That's how people know him,
It's a really savage thing to say, but that I was like, wow, Graham, that's kind of weird. Don't you think? He's like, yeah, I just don't like single-player games. If I don't know that someone else is having less fun because I'm doing well, it isn't very much fun for me.
That makes sense. Wasn't his original name like Behind You Man or something like that?
Yeah, it was Behind You.
Yeah, he's the guy that wants to come in and make things worse for you. You never even knew about it. Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah,
that adds up.
It really does.
Savage. Achilles moving into the jungle, though, is weakened. He's putting down a deep ward, I think is what this pathing was about. Trying to get a little bit more information about what Splyce is up to.
Now's the chance where Luminosity has to play a little bit more aggressively on that Pyromancer, should they so choose. Kiki is caught up on that right-hand side because of a considerable amount of solo waves. Divios made that impact in the mid lane with the rotation, but it allowed Kiki to kind of catch up. That's the trade-off whenever you try and get in and involve yourself in other lanes in the early game.
At least item-wise, though, it looks like it is favoring out to an extent here. Divios still at this point has the mid-guardian and the breastplate. Both finished, so very much itemizing into some of that physical defense as opposed to Kiki, who's got a little bit more trouble. Looks like he wants to go into one of those all-defense items here. He's still got some options available to him where he wants to go.
Probably going to be a Hide of the Urchin. Could potentially be a Spirit Robe as well. Probably too early for my liking to be a Mantle of Discord. Yeah, I think Spirit Robe is a fine pickup here. Plenty of chain CC potential on Splyce.
Already, Dharmic Pillars comes out just to try and defend. Stun land as well. But Dragonic Corruption comes out for Aror, so they're going to keep looking for more. Achilles comes out from Weaken for the silence. That keeps Aror from following up immediately. Now he has to detransform, and nothing really comes from it.
Well, they got beads from Weaken and from Keeks in that fight. Aurora got both by himself, and that's... Oh, but he is in trouble now. Has to use the sprint.
Look at that slow.
If he has it. No, actually holds on to it. Wow, really, really close there. Very surprised that Keeks doesn't pull the trigger on the Kraken to just blow Aurora up. Had the sprint, so maybe he would have been able to get out of it. Good patience, I suppose, from him. That Magai's cloak ends up being pretty impactful there for Aurora.
Tier 2 tower now being looked at as Luminosity were able to grab the Tier 1, and Aurora was forced to retreat underneath his own tower. Weaken lurking in the jungle. They want to try and force this. Heavenly Banner comes down. Silence on Aurora, and now the lockdown. Continue to jump in as Weaken trying to create some space, but Cyno is here on the backside. Up into the air goes CycloneSpin, looking for the shots, and Keegs is the target. They even use the Fury. They want to keep this one going. Stygian Torment's gonna pull everyone right back in. Divios finds the shot, and Keegs is done. Sprint comes out. Splyce are gonna keep looking. This time, the target's gonna be Clout.
Clout locked in. The ultimate from Geno, not gonna be enough. Best gets that one. Kiki likely to be next. Cyno should have a slow soon. That should be enough to bring down Kiki. There it is. And Bomb Stun gonna be off the mark. Kiki buying some time. This is what Artio does better than just about anybody. But even with all this time bot, it's going to be hard for Kiki to get out of here. Great fight, though, from Splyce. And Divios' rotation's perfectly timed, but it looks so great because Splyce had baited out so many relics. A really great extended fight there from Aurora. He baits out so much. Remember, it was him who chased the beats from Weaken and from Keegs to start off that engagement. Divios actually didn't turn around and deliver everybody to his team.
He dropped right in front of him?
Yeah, right in front of him. It's more consistent that way to hit your stun afterwards. Sometimes when you're picking up multiple people and they're coming from different angles, it kind of aggregates them at different times, and so you're missing the stun at times, it feels like. Maybe that's why Divios does it. Otherwise, I feel like he could have gotten a couple kills, but probably felt like he could have gotten a double on his own. Just miscalculated his damage by a hair.
Fight goes heavily in Splyce's favor. You talked about the time potentially that Kiki was wasting, but unfortunately, he was dancing around a pit that 8 seconds later would have a gold Fury in it, and Splyce were happily able to take that objective. Probably going to be grouping around there either way. Now take a look at these gold charts. Going to be about 1,000 in Splyce's favor. Experience essentially evened up as well. Splyce, despite LG's fast start, has found a way to catch back up.
Look, 5,000 experience is no joke. This is not one of those situations where Splyce just gets to play their own game and kind of wait it out. They have to wait for LG to make a mistake, and I think they did with throwing away their relics a little bit at the red buff, and then not necessarily throwing them away. They were necessary relic usages, but then pushing, continuing to push without their defensive relics available, just didn't end up working out for them very well, and Splyce take advantage perfectly. Like you mentioned, it's not always the negative. You got to take advantage when you can.
Knockup comes out, rather than Stygian Torment from Divios, but they're going to continue chasing Weakens here. Kiki pushed in as well. Not going to get enough damage, though. Divios can be fine underneath that Tier 1 tower. Geno steps up, using the silence, I believe, just trying to proc that Magai's cloak, and it's enough space that they've created where the Pyromancer goes down the way of LG.
But on the left-hand side, Cyclone's still pushing. He's going to get a Tier 1 here. And honestly, I think I'd rather have a Tier 1 at 23 minutes in. It's not like Luminosity is going to be able to make great use of that buff anyways.
Not going to keep pushing, though, with Cyclone. He's going to go ahead and back up. Kiki takes a couple shots underneath that Tier 1 tower, but I don't think they're thinking about committing too hard over here onto that Tier 1, onto the tanky Divios here at this point of the game. So they're just going to back up. But man, I mean, I can't stop thinking about how important that play on the tier 2 tower was in duo. I mean, overcommitting there, and all of a sudden Splyce can fight him on even ground.
And this is a great team fight composition from Splyce as well. They've got so much long-range damage between the Ram and the Agni. You've got great setup between Fafnir and Cerberus. The Nemo gets to pick a target, kill a target if you're Splyce. Now, Luminosity's team fight is pretty good as well, but I really feel like Splyce in the grouped up 5v5s, if everything's even, could be in the lead. And speaking of in the lead, Weekend is no longer in the lead in the jungle, man. He was way ahead of Cyno, but Cyno dings level 20 first, despite the 4-0 and 3 scoreline for LG's jungler.
And this is what can happen sometimes with the Achilles pick. It can be a little difficult sometimes to translate that first few, 1 to 10 minutes or so where he's dominant into this mid game that we're starting to chill in now. And looks like Cyno's done a better job transitioning over, at least farm-wise, for his team.
Now, you were talking about the build path here for Keegs, and I really liked it through the first 3 items, but I am not a fan of this 4th item Soul Gem here. He needed penetration. I needed some pen by that point. 4 items deep, you need pen in that build, and just doesn't have any. Divios is going to be able to play very aggressive into him now.
Lots of damage already being put down onto TheBest. He has to retreat. Weekend has to use his own ultimate to escape defensively. Cyno committed the Nemesis ultimate as well, so that's going to be on cooldown. The jungle's trade ult for ult. But more importantly, look how low Weekend is. He's forced to retreat yet again. Dharmic Pillars are out from Geno as well. That does mean that now Divios has to jump away from the root from KikiSoCheeky. All things considered, no one's fallen yet.
But that ends up favoring Splyce pretty heavily. They chased out a lot of relics there from Luminosity. The beads was still down from Weekend, but they got keegsmate's beads. They got both defensive relics from Geno, and Aror is still holding on to both of his support relics. Now, Best enough to use the Aegis, and Divios used both of his relics, but overall, beads being down is more important than any other cooldown for any other relic. Even Aegis in this situation for Best, because he can always beads dash out of a Kraken potentially. So anytime one team gets beads and the other doesn't, you're almost always going to end up favoring the side that has a defensive relic still available.
And Divios has been punishing those who do not have the beads available very well with these Stygian Torments. It's part of why that fight went so well on the tier 2 earlier. They've got this tier 1 in mid without much trouble. Only Geno and Weekend were here to try and defend. They really didn't have a way to fight into that. Tier 1 not really worth it at this point anyway to try and risk lives, so Splyce happy to take that one for themselves. Gold Fury is about to respawn here in another 15 seconds as well, and we've seen a couple fights over it already, so wouldn't be surprised.
And this one feels like the straw that will break a camel's back. I just don't know which camel it will be, because Luminosity can kind of be expunged from all their sins if they just win a big team fight here.
Stygian Torment comes out, is going to pull Keegs. He's the one that does not have beads, and is right back into the damage from the Best. Cyclone finds it by going up into the air. Kraken does hit Best, and he is forced to use the beads to avoid getting knocked up, but the fight continues as Clout is forced to ride away in the horse, but the chunk damage from Divios puts him down. Kiki's the next one that's in trouble. Can't find the escape. CycloneSpin takes that kill. 3 for 0. Splyce looking strong.
Man, all sins not forgiven for Luminosity, because like I said, it's just those relic trades in the mid lane favored Splyce, and then they take advantage. It's just being in the wrong spot with your beads down. Divios didn't even blink there. He didn't use it. Keegs was just in range to get picked up and brought down very perfectly. And look, it's no coincidence that Splyce is getting crushed through the early game, and then Divios starts joining fights, and they haven't lost one since. I believe the first time Divios really made an impact in the rotation was a little after 20 minutes and 45 seconds, because that's when the big uptick for Splyce starts to happen, man. He has been critical to their success, not only this game, but all season long.
Divios again having the big time impacts as Gold Fury can be looked at by Splyce. They don't want to start it just yet. They want these oracles instead. Might not have the knowledge that it's really only Geno and Achilles that are around, so this probably would not have been very contested. Looks like now they are going to try and pull it, that they've got the vision control, but LG are right around the corner if they want to come look, but they're not going to bother. Gold Fury goes the way of Splyce. Fire Giant goes the way of Splyce. The lead goes the way of Splyce as they sit with a 5,500 gold lead, 4,200 experience. What was once LG game now is firmly Splyce's.
I think I can go out on a limb and make a prediction here. Not even a prediction, but just a claim. I think Splyce might be the best last place team of all time.
Yeah, that's fair.
They look so good in so many games, and it's not just a little bit here, a little bit there. Oh, they could be really good. This is a good team. They just has not been able to find the wins, And it just blows my mind that they're 1-7 at this point in the season. It really does.
Ryan, when you first said it just a second ago, I mean, I kind of was like, yeah, but that's a good point. I mean, like, this team is really good, and their record does not reflect it. And I keep coming back to it, but that's why I think those differentials that we show are so important. I mean, when you compare to them, some of the other teams that are struggling in EU, Splyce is not getting 2-0'd. They are not getting run out of the proverbial gym. They are hanging with these teams right now, and they're showing it up against LG, who we thought was a team that had a chance to make it to the LAN. And that could suddenly be slipping through their fingers as Splyce want to try and take this game. It's certainly not over yet, but taking these tier 2 towers and this fire giant, that is not going to hurt their chances.
The only team that I think, and I'm not even sure they were ever in last place, I believe Hungry for More was a 7th place team, not an 8th place team, the team that would eventually become Obey Alliance. That team obviously turned out to be pretty good. They went on to the world stage that year when they were in a very bad spot in the spring split. But I'm pretty sure they were 7th place, so I feel pretty confident saying Splyce is the best last place team we've ever seen.
Divios starts the fight off. Dharmic Pillars comes out in response. Lots of damage on the weekend already. Agni Mob's not going to get it done, and Divios is incredibly low. Aror finds it. CycloneSpin's looking for the shots, but can't find those. They don't need them. Weekend is already down. Divios has to leave, but they're going to continue to push underneath this tier 2 tower anyway. They've got Aror, they've got Cyclone, they've got what they need, and Divios is right back in the fray with the teleport. He does not have the Stygian Torment, but he might have the element of surprise.
Totally brutal for Luminosity to not get that kill onto Divios. Escaped with probably about 100, 150 HP. And they did everything right. They blew him up on his initiation, but just didn't have quite enough.
Now it's Aror jumping back, trying to keep Keegs away from the fight. Low is Cyno, but he's on the way out. Geno's on the way out, but not the way you want to leave. He's going right back to the fountain. KikiSoCheeky going to continue to try and frontline for them. Phoenix did not get taken, and the root not going to land either. Splyce has a moment to regroup, but they're very low.
Man, a 3-man title surge for keegsmate. You don't see that every day. My man hit, that is a hard ability to hit one person with half the time, let alone 3. But it's still not enough to win Luminosity a kill, but it is enough to at least force a retreat from Splyce, which is really all Luminosity can hope for at this point. Fire Giant buff falling off Splyce in about 20 seconds, so LG didn't lose a Phoenix quite yet, so they're still in it. And look, they've got really important items to finish off. Clout looks like he's working towards a Blood Forge. keegsmate still has an entirely open 6-item slot. Could be something like a Spear of the Magus, could be a Rod of Tahuti even, I think works pretty well. Onto Poseidon. He's got a couple different options on where he wants to go. Ethereal Staff is going to be his choice, and that's a pretty solid one for him. Kiki waiting on his Mantle of Discord. So there's power spikes to be had if you're rooting for Luminosity. So despite the last few fights going their way, I think that Splyce's way, I think Luminosity still has a puncher's chance.
It's going to be a difference of strategies here between these two mid laners, though. It's really looking like Keegs is relying on getting that successful Kraken and doing a bunch all at once. Soul Reaver and the Soul Gem and the Ethereal Staff, even to a certain extent, getting all those procs can certainly be strong for him, as opposed to the best between the Spear of the Magus and the Obsidian Shard. It feels like he's kind of trying to shred some of these tanks right now.
Yeah, Soul Gem, I think, has become a little bit overvalued on a lot of gods, but I like it on Agni and I like it on Poseidon, because there are gods who are using multiple abilities to hit the same target so they can stack it up very quickly. But gods like Scylla, I do not think Soul Gem is worth purchasing on. I understand that initial burst is very important for Scylla, but there are other items that'll just give you more consistent power throughout the course of the team fight. Soul Gem without the passive stack is not a very good item.
Damage coming in on the Geno. That's the best. Bringing that damage for you with that Rain Fire ultimate. Dropped onto Kiki, courtesy of Cyno. Stygian Torment's going to land, but not going to be able to pull him back in. Dharmic Pillars and the Kraken to make it so Divios can't escape. Weaken's the one that eventually locks him down. Aurora's here and Cyclone's up in the air. If he can land the stun, then the shots can come through, but not going to be particularly impactful. Aror forced to retreat. Fire Giant still stands. And it's a 1-for-0 in favor of Luminosity.
And honestly, LG might be able to try and make something happen around this Fire Giant, but the problem is they use every ultimate they had available to them. Kiki's a stance switcher, so that diamond doesn't really count for him. 4 ultimates dumped to make sure that Divios falls, and they needed every bit of damage that they had. Divios still almost escaped.
It's just so difficult to try and bring down this Cerberus. But you saw the idea. When the Stygian Torment is used as the initiation for the Splyce roster, LG are willing to commit everything in to make sure the dog doesn't make it back out. And they got it, but they couldn't get much else off the fight. Now they have a chance to grab the Pyromancer, and they're trying to force the rest of Splyce away.
Divios is up in 10, and he's got teleport, so Oh no, LG might get baited into a bad spot here. They have to do this in
They don't
5
have
seconds or
Kraken.
less.
They don't have Kraken. Kiki's
Whoa.
already done. He gets blown up thanks to the ultimate coming out from Cyno. Fire Giant is now a distant memory in the minds of LG. They have to retreat. Splyce, on the other hand, can start pushing, and guess who's back? Divios is here, and he's going to help this squad out plenty. I don't even know if Luminosity want to try and contest. This is going to be a free Fire Giant for Splyce.
Man, Kiki's build, I really like a lot of things about it. It has good health. It's got a nice balance of magical and physical protection. The problem is it's not a ton of protection. A little bit more utility with that Rod of Asclepius. Gives him health, gives him damage, gives him movement speed. But that Nemult means that your low protection pool, low-ish, it's not horribly low. It's just that Nemesis can make it feel that way at times. And I'm sure that Kiki's certainly feeling that way after that last engagement.
Divios wants to try and keep Weekend out of the fight to create some space for the Phoenix Siege to begin. Keegs puts a little bit of damage Divios' way, but he doesn't mind. Dharmic Pillars comes in. This has been the call every time. Kraken follows as well. Divios is done. Rainfire comes out as well, but Aror could be in potentially some trouble. Weekend goes in, look for the execute, doesn't find him, but gets plenty of damage. Cyclone, thanks to the Aegis, is going to be able to escape, but LG are pushing forward.
Nice bomb stun, though, from Best. Stops that push for the moment, but Kiki's teleported in behind everybody. Cyno in a ton of trouble, has both his relics, going to need to use the beads in order to get away, but it's LG on the chase.
They can't lock anyone down, though. The rest of Splyce going to continue to run, but the best is on the back end. This is not where you want to see your Agni stun. Whirlpool, dead. Clout is the one that finds that last hit. LG turned that into a 2 for 0 if you don't count Kiki, who made it back in at the backside, and they defend their Phoenix against the Fire Giant squad.
Man, and now Luminosity has a couple options. Do they try and get a Phoenix here, or do they just take down towers? I think with Divios being up in 12 seconds, I wouldn't mind seeing them just transition over to the left, knock down that already weakened tier 2, but at the same time, this is the first time LG's won a fight in how long? It's got to be tempting to just push your lead when you have it.
Cyno, Aror, and CycloneSpin. That's who's still alive to try and keep Splyce going. Heavenly Banner drops. Dharmic Pillar to zone him away. No way in. Dashing in anyways, Aror. Cyno drops the ultimate down. They want to try and find Clout, but the Aegis immunes a lot. Divios is here, and he pulls in. keegsmate hits him with the damage, but Aegis keeps him alive. Gonna be able to keep looking for the retreat. LG now are the ones who cannot find this Phoenix in mid. These Phoenix sieges are so difficult.
Well, they didn't have minions, Finch, and there were still 3 members there. It didn't take long for Divios to respawn, and he had his blink up, so he's going to be able to get there very quickly. That's why I felt like the left tier 2 is a safer call, because now if LG win another fight, if they want to put the Titan, it's that much tankier because that tower is still up. I think that while the mid Phoenix is obviously the best case scenario if they can get it, it was just a little bit too risky for my liking, and I prefer to try and keep my options open on the next engagement when in situations like that. You want to make it as easy as possible to end the game after the next fight.
I gotta turn to you on this one, Agro, because I don't know the answer to this question, but I don't think it can be Divios that can initiate for them anymore, so if not him, then who? Because every time he goes in for the Stygian Torment, not only do they not get pulled, but they drop Dharmic Pillars, the Kraken, and they blow him up.
I think I'd like to see Aurora try and find a frontliner with the hammer, stun out Geno, stun out Kiki. The problem there is the Magi's Cloak for Geno makes that a little bit problematic, but Aurora can proc that off very easily with that disarm right there that we just saw, that underhanded tactics. I think Aurora hitting a frontliner with that and then just committing Nemult and CycloneSpin's damage and Best damage to either Geno or Kiki, and then starting the engagement off as a 5v4, even without some ultimates, is the right call, because I agree with you. Divios has proven now that he's not as tanky as he once was relative to the enemy team, so it's time to scale it back, change up our strategy, and I think killing a frontliner to making sure that Divios doesn't get as much lockdown on his side. The damage is one thing, but it's the lockdown on top of it that really makes this combo problematic for Divios. So if Luminosity lose one of those lockdown members, it'll make Divios' job much easier for Splyce.
Fire Giant, about another minute before that respawn, so the buff itself no longer going to be part of the fights, at least until someone is able to reclaim it for themselves. This game, though, has been so back and forth. These Phoenix sieges have been difficult for these teams so far. The Phoenix defenses, obviously, then have been strong. Aurora, going forward, is able to make it out of there. Going to cost the Magi's cloak, at least for now. So another minute where he will not have the bubble.
Well, he traded it out for Geno's. Hit the hammer on the Geno. They both glowed gold, and they both left. So kind of an even trade overall, but I think that if Splyce can do what I was just talking about, which is allow Aror to be the initiator onto a frontliner, it favors the side of Splyce.
Divios will be the one who steps forward for Splyce yet again. Has Aror here in tow. He's looking for the hammer. The sign's going to come out, though, so he can't find it. Kiki is the one that's going to start this fight this time. Already forced to dash away is TheBest. Didn't know where the rest of that damage might be coming from. No fight ends up breaking out, but Splyce are the ones who fall back.
Splyce probably don't want to give this up Pyromancer for free. No, it's going to be Kiki who eats that Nemesis ultimate into the backline, goes weakened. Cyclone already very low. Kraken brings down Divios, and he was isolated yet again. Luminosity now get the Pyromancer and probably the Fire Giant after that. Kiki just got out of there too quickly. Not the chain CCs was really necessary for that Nemo combo to really work. Divios thought he was probably going to get a little bit of help from Cyno or Aror on the backside, but they were too busy worrying about Weaken. Just a coordinated dive effort from Luminosity. You have to be able to see your teammate getting Nem-ulted or initiated on, and that was the go sign for Weaken. Really, really well timed on his blink in.
And to me, this is LG's greatest strength, because I don't think they've got the 5 best players in the world in their team, but I think they've got some of the best shot calling and teamwork around it that we've seen, and that's what's helped them. The game plan is clearly to blow Divios up, and that's what they do, and they're doing it incredibly well. Now the fight's going to break out under the mid Phoenix too, and they won't have Divios here to help.
Keys had to use the Aegis, but Cyclone, where'd he go? Dies before he gets the Aegis or the ult off. Now Divios is up in 8, so Luminosity don't push for the win here. Instead, they're heading toward that left-hand side, but remember, that tower still standing, so they've got to wait another moment. That'll buy time for Divios to come back up.
Tier 2 tower does crumble. Phoenix in mid obviously came tumbling down as well, and CycloneSpin will not be here to be a part of the defense, but this time Divios is back, and he's going to try and fight it.
Now, Keegs has got to be careful. No relics for him, but no beads for TheBest either. Watch out for these mid laners. Look at how far back Keegs is right now. He's waiting for Divios' ult.
Already, the ultimate has come down onto Weaken, who's forced to retreat. Stingy and Torment is going for the pull, but they're instead going to collapse onto Divios. He falls. Keegs is the one that finds it, silences on Aror, so they can go for the lockdown onto him as well. Weaken low, but he's not afraid to push in any further. Best is rooted, Best is locked down, but Weaken's the one that falls. Double kill comes out for Keegs as Kiki is able to find the Best. Only Aror is the one that's still standing. LG have turned this game on its head, and now they're tumbling into the Titan room. Phoenix in left-hand side falls as well, and now they can take down the Titan.
Luminosity got the lead early and won it easy after that, right, Finch? No problems whatsoever.
Just forget that mid part, yeah.
Exactly. LG finally able to close it out. And I love that patience from Keegs. Probably a step or two too far back. He was comically far back from the rest of the engagement.
It ain't gonna be me.
Exactly. You know that Weaken was like, Keegs, I swear to God, if you get pulled by Divios again without beads, I'm kicking your ass. And he was like, all right, Kurt. Chill, bro. I'm out of here, bro. It's cool, bro. That's Keegs and how he talks. That's actually pretty much correct.
He uses a lot of bros, right?
He uses a lot of bros. Yeah, for sure. But at that time, it just immediately waits for Divios' initiation. Divios blinks in, uses Stygian Torment, and Keegs goes, cool, I get to play now. And steps up and finds a double kill, eventually the delayed triple on top of that. Just well played by Luminosity. Stumbled a little bit. Splyce, man, they're such a good team, but they just can't win, dude. They're cursed.
Yeah, no matter how close they get,
point.
right? Yeah. It's tough, too, because they knew what the game plan was, right? When Divios commits in, blow them up, and they still just had no way to play around it. Yeah. Remember, CycloneSpin had fallen before that last engagement, too, so it was the 5v4 anyway, and LG are able to find that win.
Impressive stuff from them, but Splyce has got to figure it out, dude. I don't know. Yeah. This ROM from CycloneSpin, we've seen it all day so far. I wonder if we're going to see it next game. I think we probably will. Hasn't done it for me consistently yet today, but like I said on the desk, want him to play Hunters? He's playing Hunters. I'm going to lay off. Next week, we can work on different Hunters getting in there, you know?
Well, who was your MVP in Game 1? Picking from LG, I imagine, as they were the ones who were able to find that victory, despite the way that mid-late-ish game was looking like it was finally going to go Splyce's way, but unable to close it out, which has kind of been their story of the spring split so far. But let's go ahead and get it over to Tom and Graham to break it down.
Thanks, boys. That was game 1, and boy, what a game it was. 98,000 gold for both of these teams. When we saw the final push, Weaken and keegsmate combined for 12 kills. and LG wind up taking it.
That was a great little set. Honestly, today's been fantastic for North America. It's been a highly entertaining day. We got to see a great set earlier on. Then we got to see the Baskin show. Then we got to see this one, which is very close between the two. The back and forth encounter is really interesting here. It kind of shined. Achilles in the early game. Wicken goes off, gets a huge lead for his team. But then midpoint kicks in, and then Splyce start to fight back in. Problem is, late game.
Exactly.
Where was the initiation? They were relying on the Cerberus, and unfortunately the Cerberus could not do that alone. Bursted every single time, gave LG that window to come back in.
KikiSoCheeky comes through and just performs in the late game, in the early game, and this Poseidon has been his pick since he was playing in the Smite Console League, making over the change over to the PC side of things, and not even a step slower.
It's still funny because like every single season, there's always either Poseidon or Kukulkan in the meta. One of them will always be there or thereabouts. Maybe not first pick, first ban material, but always viable in the mid lane. And it just shows you what this Poseidon will bring to the team.
The biggest problem for me was Splyce picked into this mid lane selection with characters that kind of get beat up by keegsmate's choice. I mean, Poseidon punishes the Fafnir really hard. There was a couple of players that got punished by the cripple that Fafnir brought, or excuse me, that the Poseidon brought. Sure. It was a pick that was already strong for Keegs, and Splyce made it stronger.
I'll be honest, I don't think it was just the Poseidon. There was double cripple on that team. The Artio on the front line, and then you've got more. When that one cripple fades, another one's there. Oh, that one's down. Oh, guess what? We'll go and get the other one out. That's kind of how that situation went. Achilles, though, Wicken played Achilles great in the early game once again.
What a surprise.
Went on a tear with it, and it just set his team up for a decent point until Splyce got back into it. Game 2 should be just as good here because these two are really scrapping as well.
Let's see.